Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our September Audit and Finance Committee meeting. Glad to see everyone and hope everyone is well. I am calling the meeting to order and asking for action on the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from the August 2nd meeting. Are there any corrections or questions about the minutes? If not, I will ask for a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the, we are gonna go into executive session. I know that's a little bit odd, but there's a reason for needing to do this on the beginning of the meeting. So I'm gonna ask that the board members, I guess they're gonna go to a chat, another room, Maggie? Yes, ma'am. Okay, all right. And we just have one item to deal with and then we'll be back to you. Okay, so we will now reconvene into regular session. Staff brought to the committee an item for information only. No votes was taken. And we do not have a need for a vote in open session. The next item on the agenda is 8% general obligation bonds, Ms. Williams and Ms. Clark.
Thank you, Ms. Green. So this is related to a semi-annual issuance to pay commitments for short-term and long-term debt. I'm going to defer to Ms. Clark to walk through the specifics of the bond deal.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Good afternoon. As Ms. Williams said, we come to the board, the Audit and Finance, and then the full board about this time every year to get authorization for the general obligation bonds that we issue in the fall. And for each, we've got a Series A, which is tax exempt, and a Series B, which is taxable. And the purpose for both of these two borrowings is to retire the two bond anticipation notes that were issued in May to make the June 1st payments due on the alternative financing, the installment purchase revenue bonds, and then also to make the payments on those bonds that will be due on December 1st. So with the Series A, which is in the amount not to exceed $90 million, approximately $26 million of that will be used to make the December 1st installment payments on the 2013 B and the 2014 installment bonds. And then the remaining amount of about $61 million will retire the Series 2022 A bond anticipation note that was issued to pay fixed cost of ownership and advanced design for some schools, as well as making those June 1st payments. And then the Series B taxable piece is issued in the amount of not to exceed $6 million. And that will be about $4.1 million for the December 1 payments on the taxable 2020 installment bonds, and $1.3 million to retire the Series 2022D taxable ban. And as I said, this is exactly the same thing that we do every year. There's no new money involved in any of this. This is just to meet the district's obligations.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Clark. As always, are there any questions for Ms. Williams or Ms. Clark?
This is Ken. I don't have any questions or objections to this specific financing, but I know I always check on this. I'm curious. I'm still interested in a multi-year projection, both of our P&L, but also our balance sheet, specifically our debt. And obviously the trend has been a good one over the past several years, but I'm always interested in this, but I'm especially interested given the change in the interest rate environment and how our projections over several years might look as it relate to both, the cost of the debt and how much debt we hold on to.
Well, with both of these issues, they will be retired in full on March 1 of 2023 from taxes that are levied on the tax bills that will go out next month. So this is not creating any sort of long-term debt. This is, we issue it and we pay it off, and that frees us up to give the capacity to do the same thing next year.
Totally understand. And I understand that cadence on this, that this is, this is not, I don't have any concern about this specific financing, but I'm more interested for this committee's purposes, being able to look out over a multi-year period and see, because I agree, this is essentially an inter-year, short-term financing tool. I'm more interested in the long-term projection of over the next 3 to 5 years, how our debt balance is how we are currently projecting it to progress.
Okay, well, really, there has been some discussion that I've not been very closely involved with about possibly issuing some longer term debt for, I think it's the renovation of 3 schools that were on the project list for the next sales tax program. But as I understand it, and there are others there who can probably speak to this with more knowledge than I can, but apparently the board at some point in the past, I guess, year, approved moving up 3 of the schools that were slated for the sales tax program that involved renovations. And I think some of that work might go on with a longer term GO. But otherwise, as far as the sales tax programs, we'll continue to do the 1-year ban in May of each year and pay it off in the following year. And ultimately down the road, those will be retired with sales tax collections. The phase 4 program just goes through the end of this year. And so it will then dwindle down and be repaid in full from the last remaining tax collections from phase 4. But other than the renovation of the 3 schools that I just mentioned, I don't think that there is any other long-term plans for or short-term plans for issuing any other long-term debt.
So I can add a bit to that. So it's probably at least a year and a half ago when what Ms. Clark is talking about, those 3 projects, and at that time we had PFM do an analysis and present it to the Audit and Finance Committee. I think at least 2 scenarios, and if not 3, one of those scenarios had us issuing debt and still retiring the debt at the time we had contemplated years ago. So what we can do is we can have PFM do an update on that, and especially in light of the interest rates changes that you talked about. And so we can have that perhaps try and have it for the October, if not October, the November Audit and Finance.
And it's just one opinion, but it's my opinion that having that multi-year look would be a useful thing for us to do, in my opinion, at least once a year. Obviously, we hope it doesn't change that much year to year, but it's hard to make the individual financing decisions to build a school or to do other things without knowing how it impacts the long-term total picture. But thank you. I think that would be great if they can help us with that.
And I think actually, and maybe maybe Lisa or I don't see Jackie Jackie can confirm, but I think each year when we do the budget, in the budget book, we actually have PFM do a long-term debt projection.
That's correct, Mr. Kennedy. And actually, I had pulled the one that they did this past, I guess it was May, and Ms. Williams and I went through that just about a week or so ago and just discussed some of the various types of debt that are outstanding. And, we'd said as well that it would probably be a good idea soon after the board election, considering we might have, a number of new board members on. But I believe we have done it in years past with David Moore for Audit and Finance, but I know it has been a while. But I know they do keep that very updated. They update it once a year. And so I can ask them to go ahead and do maybe, well, it would be before these bonds are issued, bring it forward from this past May so that we can go through that.
Thank you. That would be great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll put that together, Mr. Griffin. I literally asked the same question a week ago.
Thank you for bringing that up, Kent. Are there any other questions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ms. Clark, thank you as always. I think, you're welcome to hang into the meeting if you want to.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Green.
Okay, the next item is proximity for teacher vacancies. Mr. Brigman, I assume, yeah. Okay, all right. So we'll hear from you.
Proximity is a company based out of Texas that provides to school districts all over the United States, but predominantly in the Southeast. This company works.
Use your mic. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's sorry. I'm gonna start over. Proximity is a country based out of Texas that provides teachers, certified teachers, to school districts when they are having difficulty in locating teachers to fill some of their classroom vacancies, teaching vacancies. And it is being used by a number of school districts in the Southeast, some here, some already in South Carolina. And so we investigated this company. We talked with the directors and owners of the company about what services they provide. And they will actually find a teacher to remote into the classroom, a certified teacher knowledgeable in the content area who will teach our curriculum using our South Carolina materials and all of our teaching standards, and will teach to the students. They supply to the teacher. They find the teacher who is South Carolina certified, and they provide to the teacher the computers and the materials and the equipment they need to be able to Zoom into the classroom. On our end, we would have the students in the classroom, and we would hire a proctor, a person that would be in the classroom every day, providing the continuity and helping, much like a teacher assistant in some ways, helping the classroom teacher who is virtual disseminate the lesson. Sometimes she may move them into small groups, et cetera. So it is it's a rather new initiative. I mean, with COVID, a lot of people went to virtual instruction. And so this is another vehicle that we would like to enter into a contract with them to provide some teachers if we do have hard to fill vacancies. This is mainly for middle level and high and secondary high school level, but they will provide elementary and special area teachers as well. So if you have any questions, I'm glad to answer those.
Any questions from the committee?
Just curious, why is this an audit and finance issue? Because it seems like a contract, like, is this a budget adjustment, or I'm just curious?
It's because it exceeds the 250,000. So it's going forward on the 250,000 list. So we wanted to provide the context in advance. It's 23 proctors, 23 virtual teachers for $1.9 million.
Got it. Thanks.
But it was not included in our budget when we did the budget for the fiscal year.
Correct. It was not included in the budget.
And so where is the money coming from?
Fund balance.
Pardon?
Fund balance.
Is that cost the cost of their fee, or is that includes the instruction time of their people, correct?
I believe so. It's the personnel, right, Terry?
Yeah, it's their personnel to hire the teacher. It's our cost of hiring the proctor to be in the classroom every day, which is lower cost than the teacher. And we would use the teacher FTE, but it goes a little bit above that. And that's for 23 teachers. In actuality, I think the actual number that we probably will use this year will be much less than that.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, I mean, this would be a contract where we would really be hiring virtual teachers.
Correct.
And I mean, aren't we trying to get away from that?
Yes. And in every way we can, we'd rather have hire a live teacher in the classroom. We started looking into this in early August, when we still had a number of vacancies that were open, and we had our candidate pool was very dry. We just didn't have a lot of candidates. And so we started looking at that rather. Having a certified teacher in front of kids, even if it is virtual, seemed to be preferable than trying to find substitute teachers who may not have the subject matter expertise.
So what's the realistic, what will happen once the contract is in place with regards to the district's efforts to hire full-time in-person teachers? Because you've got a contract now that you're paying for. So in my mind, it says, well, until this contract expires, we really don't need to continue looking for teachers. Is that an accurate thought?
We'll continue to look for teachers. And we'll continue to do all of those things, that recruiting and reaching out to hire teachers for next school year. Right now, as I understand, this contract is just for this current school year. And so we'll be, hopefully, number one, I hope we don't need to use all of the positions that we originally thought, number one. Number two, we'll continue to look for and recruit teachers to fill the classroom vacancies and for next school term. So
I mean, Ms. Green, I can't see a scenario where we would stop recruiting for classroom teachers. This is
Stop may have been a strong word, you know.
Huh?
Stop may have not been the right word. I
Well,
mean,
but
you know,
yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. But
not be
but-
as cushy.
but the intent is to make sure that we are prepared in case the teacher shortage proves to be worse for CCSD than than it could be. Otherwise, it might be. And as Ms. Nichols said, we don't think we're used to full 23, which is an indication that we are continuing to recruit.
So it sounds like the net cost of this is nominal relative to our budget, meaning because we're essentially hiring this virtual teachers and we're going to have the offset partially the savings of not having the FTEs in place. So from a finance committee perspective, this seems like, and clearly you want to have a virtual teacher versus no teacher. So it seems like an easy thing for the finance committee to approve. But does this ultimately go to the board for approval separately?
It goes, excuse me, it goes as a part of the $250,000
Right.
Contract limit.
So I mean, I know it's a soft point, but if we're not a policy group, but if the district wanted to add in here a sentence or two, just clarifying that the overriding priority is to ensure in-person teachers, just so nobody's lost on the priority here. That might address some of the concerns that have been mentioned.
Maybe we can add that to the motion. If somebody is going to make a motion, maybe we could add that statement to the motion. If somebody who makes the motion so desires. Are there any other questions about?
So I have a couple of questions, if I may, Joyce.
Sure, I was surprised that you didn't initially.
So speaking from the finance committee piece, and then we'll speak from the board piece. From the finance committee piece, you did this last year and you never brought it forward. So, but for the glitch with the procurement code, it's the district's position that you don't need the committee's approval to do this. Is that correct? I asked that because of the governance structure that we're heading into. Once we come out of this procurement issue that created this temporary policy, Mr. Kennedy, I assume last year it was the district's position that the board didn't need to know about this because we've never heard of this. And once the procurement thing is fixed, is it still the district's position that the board doesn't need to know that we have this virtual teaching going on in our schools?
It's my understanding that the board's position is that the $250,000 contract threshold limit will always be in place for board approval. Certainly,
Okay.
That's my intent.
Okay, because then I'll go to the other question, which is there's a lot of talk at the state, and clearly you're aware of this, and a lot of state boards conversations around certified teachers in the classroom versus non-certified teachers. And Terry, this word stuck out with me. You said certified by South Carolina. So I like that, but you didn't say located in South Carolina. And you also said knowledgeable in the subject. You didn't say content expert. So is it possible that these are teachers living outside of the state that once they get hired, they're going to look for a reciprocity certification into South Carolina?
Yes,
they're long-term teachers.
It's very likely that some of the teachers will not be from South Carolina, but will be certified in the subject matter experts, math, science, social studies, and get reciprocity to become certified in South Carolina. There are some folks, and I asked this question because we spent a lot of time with the proximity people, because I was saying, if you can find teachers, why can't we find those same teachers? Well, he had a lot of different, some were military spouses that they prefer to do this because they, because of flexibility in their scheduling, et cetera. Some are mothers, extending their maternity or paternity leaves. Some just prefer to teach virtually, but one of the big demands that we had when we talked to them is that we wanted certified teachers that were experts in their field, that knew the content and were certified to teach it.
Okay. And so, but this conversation started in 2020 when you did it for the 21-22 school year. So talk to me about how it has worked and why you're expanding it. Specifically from an educational standpoint, because we've talked about the data points on the money, but you had this in 4 schools last year. Why are you continuing it? And what did it look like last year? I mean, this isn't a surprise to us. You're continuing something. So, and that may not be for this committee, but why I just want to make sure we don't wake up one day and find out on the front page of the Post and Courier that you're having teachers aren't being in the classroom and that there was no communication to the parents ahead of time that this is what their child would tell them. So how did it look last year? Will it look the same this year? And what's your communication plan for the families affected?
I can't speak directly to last year because when I started investigating with some folks with proximity, I did not know we had it last year. So I understand that we did it in just on a very small scale for Spanish. I believe that may have been the only content area that we did. And from when talking to the principals that had that, they thought it worked well because they could not find a Spanish teacher for them. The proximity folks have a very good communication plan. They have some templates and some letters that they've shared with us that other districts have used, that we let the parents know about this ahead of time. The teachers have the virtual teachers with proximity have plans of the ways that they will communicate with the parents, just as if they were in the school building. These teachers, the proximity teachers, will plan with the other teachers on their grade level. So if they're a middle level ELA teacher in a school, we insist that they attend the planning sessions with the other teachers, even if they're remote, so that they can be really a part of that school. So we have a pretty good, I think a very good communication plan prepared for parents.
Joyce, I have 2 more questions. Is that okay?
Yeah.
So do you have, I guess I'm asking, we've done this. We should know by now whether it worked or didn't work because we've done this. And so we don't have any information on the student achievement or how the discipline was in the classroom or how can you tell us any tangible reason from last year's experiences of why you're doing this next year? Or is this just, can you tell us, I mean, we have a body of data where we should have, why don't we have that?
A couple points. One, I believe that this is the first year that there's a district-wide contract being contemplated. The 3 or 4 schools that we had worked with proximity in the past was those contracts were entered, I believe, Shawn, maybe you can confirm this, by individual schools and not the district, not a district-wide contract. And I haven't been heavily involved in the background on this, but a little bit I have been involved. I've heard from the academic folks, Dr. Williams specifically, and I seem like one other, that they supported, he at least support this expansion because of the outcomes that we had for the schools that entered into individual contracts.
Okay, and my last question is this a not to exceed contract that we enter into with a dollar amount per teacher? Because it's $1 million approval, but you can't define the number of teachers you're going to use. So are we approving an up to, and if you need 2 teachers, you pay for 2 teachers. If you need 6, you pay for 6.
Yes.
Does this cost include the proctor you're going to pay to be in the classroom?
Yes.
Yes, it's total cost. So 23 proctors, 23 teachers, virtual teachers, 1.9 million, not to exceed. We may or may not use the full 23. And Mr.
Perfect.
Kennedy is correct. These were at the contracts for proximity last year were at the school level. It wasn't a district-wide initiative. And so that's why we don't have the district-wide data, Ms. Coates.
But we would be able to have the student data if we'd asked for it.
I'll defer to
Yes, we could. We could find that.
All right.
Is there
Thank
any
you,
way
Joyce.
that- Is there any way we could? And committee members, tell me if y'all think I'm really far reaching here, but is there any way we could separate what we are approving? Because the concept, you know, is one thing, but the funding is something totally different. I'd be a lot more comfortable because, I mean, you wouldn't be bringing this to us if it wasn't involved with the contract and the money. I would like for this committee to vote on the contract and the money. Can we, I mean, are y'all okay with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. It's just that this isn't anything that they've ever brought to the board. They're going to bring this to the board without discussion.
Right. I mean, it has not come to the full board, but as far as audit and finance is concerned, I assume the reason it's coming to us is because now we've got a budget issue and a contractual issue. And so, I don't know. I think I would prefer that the motion addresses the financial part of it, if we could reword it somehow.
So,
I kind of see where you're at, Joyce, and I think I would prefer that if you're going to have these structural issues that you're asking to be funded, that this committee know that the structural issue is something that's common knowledge and not, again, if I were a member of the Audit and Finance Committee and I didn't go back and find the specific audit and finance notes, I would literally never know about this when we go to the next board meeting.
so if, we could have a proposal that goes along the lines of we approve this contract in this case, but we do not are not having, I don't know how to say it, but we are not taking a position as to the appropriateness of virtual teaching in this committee or something like that.
Yeah, I like that. Are y'all, I mean, Stephen and Michael, are you guys okay with that? Because sometimes I can nitpick and I don't mean to, but I just, yeah, I would prefer something along those lines. Are y'all okay with that?
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, I'm fine.
And Cindy, you are as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so Kent, you want to,
Sure. So I'll move that
that's your
we,
motion?
yeah, I'll move that we approve this specific contract with the note that this committee is not opining or taking a position or opinion on the appropriateness of the virtual teaching model.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Terry. Appreciate that. And the next item is Ms. Shaw, the 2023 through 28 capital program addendum to the 2020 plan.
Thank you, Ms. Green. So yes, as a result of the newly adopted General Appropriations Bill, Proviso 1.113, it is recommended that our 2020 Phase 5 Capital Programs Master Plan is updated to include a list of underutilized properties that the district does not intend to sell and a description of its future use. Otherwise, the district will be required to sell or lease those underutilized properties. The proviso itself states in part that if not already included in a district's capital improvement plan, a school district must transfer or offer to sell or lease any surplus property which has been vacant, unused, or unused for direct student instruction. So attached to this item is the addendum for the 2020 Phase 5 Capital Programs Master Plan that includes 6 properties. That concludes my item.
Joyce, may I go ahead and make a motion to approve the addendum?
Unless somebody has some questions. Anybody has any questions? I think this is just for them to be in compliance with the new law. Sure, go ahead, Cindy.
I'll second.
Thank you.
All right. I'm not gonna bog you down. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And thank you.
Thank you.
They must like your items.
Like
Okay,
all.
the next item is, Mr. Hamer, who has the three items. The first of which is the fixed cost of ownership. Yeah,
Yes,
and you in yet another role, right?
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Trying to keep up. Good afternoon, Mrs. Green, and good afternoon to everyone else. This item does relate to the fixed cost of ownership for FY23. The recommendation is that the committee approve a reallocation of the FY23 FCO plan. Last month, I briefed the operations officer that we had identified $947,000 in savings in our plan for various reasons, and that we should reallocate those to some projects that weren't identified in the plan that was approved last year. Some of the reasons we had those savings had to do with some new strategies in terms of procuring some of our vehicles, as well as some new plans for Zion Elementary School and some other items. But again, the final number in those savings is $947,000. And again, the recommendation is to approve that for reallocation to other projects. Standing by for your questions.
Any questions of Mr. Hamer? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, you can keep going, Mr. Hamer.
Yes, ma'am. Similar to FCO, the next item is for our capital maintenance budget reallocation. Again, there were some savings that we've undergone during project execution for this fiscal year. That total amount of savings is $7 million, just over $7 million in our capital maintenance plans that we're recommending reallocating to other projects. Some of the key reasons for those savings is that when this plan was put together, there are some items there that we've moved to being funded with ESSER with some roof work at Northwoods Middle School, as well as some HVAC work at Frierson Elementary. So again, total amount is $7 million, and you have in your backup where those projects we recommend reallocating them to.
So may I ask one question, Joyce?
Sure.
Mr. Larson, can you, Mr. Hamer, can you confirm, I think the very last sentence did it, is we're not pulling away from putting the new roof on Northwoods. We're using a different funding source for the same work.
That's absolutely right. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I will entertain a motion for approval.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and the third item, Mr. Hamer, is the capital program 2023 sales tax early out.
Yes, yes, ma'am. And this is really an extension of the previous item. It's for information only. It gives you more details on those reallocations and which portions of them we're pulling from the approval and early out, and which items that when we reallocate them will go towards early out. And again, so in the background there, you'll see the difference between those items that we're reallocating them towards design as opposed to execution. And it just provides more details to the action for approval that I just provided a moment ago.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Hamer on that? That is an information item. If not, Mr. Hamer, thank you. And we appreciate your.
Ms. Green, this is Velma. I just have one question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. Sure.
I know on the previous schedule, it was showing 8 million, or am I? And we're talking about 7 million. Is it a?
No, I'm sorry, I should have clarified that. So okay. The 8 million was based on the precise numbers that were in the budget. Okay. The 7 million shows the updated actual cost that we are realizing. So it's just The backup slide of the third page shows those more precise costs as opposed to how it was written in our budget.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Rocky, are you there? I don't see you.
I am. Thank you, Ms. Green.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So just wanted to bring you the quarterly update of the Citizen Oversight Committee minutes. We had a great meeting talking about mostly our summer security goals, which included multi-factor authentication. We're trying to get to the point where at least the IT staff has to have multiple layers of identification. Similar to like when you log into your bank, you get a text message or you get something similar. So we're trying to tighten down some of our security into our more sensitive systems. We're working on retention policies for student and staff accounts, continued scanning of our vulnerabilities, and also remediation, and also tightening down the security around our wireless. We also talked about the replacement of our entire network security platform, and that was a pretty sizable project this summer. We also talked about proposed changes to our backup system so that we now are having a true airlocked, if you will, instance of a backup in the cloud that nothing touches. We have to physically connect to it to get to it if we ever needed it, rather than just a constant feed that if someone was to get into our network with ransomware or something else, that they would have access to that. Also replication, we're having multiple copies of our data, sensitive data, across the cloud and also across the network in 3 of our district buildings, and also incident response. The last thing is I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Duke. Mr. Duke actually had an idea earlier this year about having our committee being more than just a group that meets and talks about things. He wanted to be a committee of action, and he had a great idea of getting involved in the City of Charleston's First Day Festival. So, Mr. Duke, how about give us the update on that?
Yeah. So this year we were able to get into the First Day Festival, and hopefully next year we can do more. And Tammy helped us create these. It's a little bit hard to see, but we created these great little magnets, and we created a list of all the safeties, internet safety that parents should be teaching at home. So we had a booth set up there in the Gilliard Center during the first day, and we met many parents and gave them ideas. You know, Tom has to take care of the school network, but that's just as safe as the users connecting to it. So we felt that it was important that maybe we take some of those safety measures that we're trying to do at the school level that parents would take back to home. So we hope to continue this on, and we're also looking at, you know, some other projects that we can do, you know, to help CCSD, such as, you know, helping on online learning, some other things, you know, to get more active than just our quarterly meetings.
Hey, Stephen, did you guys push those out to all parents across the district?
We did push these out to all parents that were present at the First Day Festival.
No, but I mean, can you push it out not as a magnet, but as just content, as email or something?
I mean, yeah, we can definitely, you know, look at getting this information out to all parents, and hopefully, you know, at the school level, they're definitely being pushed, and Tom can answer that, you know, if there is notification going out to parents, you know, on their safety tips. I know we talked a lot about it when we were doing virtual learning, and we had every student on the system, but just to make sure that we keep them up to date, you know, on what safety features that they should have at their network at home.
It was very interesting that Mr. Duke had a couple games there, and the parents were more interested in games than the kids were. So I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Tom or Stephen? Stephen, thank you for that. I saw your email and wasn't able to participate, but I think it was a great idea. And maybe next year I'll be able to participate as a non-board member.
Yeah, we're always looking for help, and we stayed for the whole time, and we had, you know, it was nonstop people coming to our station.
Yeah, thank you for that. Tom, you have anything else for us?
No, ma'am.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Sure.
The next item is, the next 3 items are, Mr. Wiltshire, the approval of the projects over $250,000. Does anybody have any questions about any of those? If not, before I ask for a motion, Mr. Wiltshire, do you have any comments you need to make about any of those?
No, ma'am, not at this time, Ms. Green. Thank you.
So if nobody has any questions, can I get a motion for approval of those items?
Motion to approve projects on the attached list, on the list presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and the next item is the sole source emergency procurement report. That's primarily for information to show those sole sources that was done, I guess, during the last fiscal year. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. Those are for fiscal year 22. We did 7 sole sources and no emergency procurements.
How does that measure up, Mr. Wiltshire, to previous years in terms just of numbers of sole source?
It's right there, about the same amount. I think we had 11 last year. And actually, if you look at those dollar amounts there, going into fiscal year 23, only one of those items would be considered a sole source. Rest of those items will fall below the small purchase threshold.
Okay. Are there any questions about this particular item from any of the board members?
The dollar amounts don't warrant the question, but I'm just curious what PLTW stands for.
Project Lead the Way.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, okay. Any other questions? Okay, so the next item is the Minority Business Utilization Plan, another information item from Mr. Wiltshire.
Yes, that is the plan for FY 23, the current fiscal year. And those are the numbers that we're targeting to participate with minority businesses in this fiscal year.
Any questions or comments on that?
I can't remember the history. I know we talked several times about these percentages. Are these percentages high? Have we moved these up from last year? Because I thought we were going to try to keep moving these percentages up a little bit.
No, actually, those percentages reflect what our current procurement code, the one that was approved in January, those percentages reflect what the current procurement code has.
Okay.
So do you normally meet your goals for minority spending?
In the past, we met our goal here. The SWMB report for fiscal year 22 will be brought before the Audit and Finance Committee next month.
And Kent, I kind of, now that I think about it, I do remember some discussion around increasing those numbers, but I guess we never did it officially, or it never happened officially.
Well, if I may.
Sure.
So we did have some extensive discussion around increasing the percentages. That's when a decision was made to go out with the disparity study to have some real data to use to actually set percentages. So we still have not received the report from the disparity study, and we have a second outside audit firms taking a look at that the procurement process associated with minority participation.
Okay.
And so I would submit that we're not in a position yet to change the percentages until we have those reports, so that we'd have the data that we need to inform our decision on those percentages.
And are those percentages set at a particular time during the year, or at just any time the administration decides they can, I mean, you don't do like an annual every February, we set the goals for the following year?
Well, it is this time every year.
It's
So it's after the books have been closed for the prior fiscal year, and the budgets for the updated upcoming fiscal year, which is the current fiscal year now, all that's been finalized so that we can actually see what the proposed expenditures are going to be, and then we set the goals based on those expenditures.
Okay.
And so it's always in a late summer, early fall.
Yeah.
And
is the district required to report to the state on their minority utilization plan, or is it just, are you exempt from that?
We don't have to report it to the state. We have to report it to the superintendent and the board.
Okay.
No, I was just gonna make us a kind of a smarty comment that we will get that utilization report at some point, hence, right? Yeah, okay, all right. Okay, any further questions regarding any of those reports from Mr. Wilter? If not, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ms. Costello, monthly capital projects report.
Thank you, Ms. Green. I'd like to present to the committee the July capital projects report. Our revenue collections were 3.9 million above our 2% projected cash flow. Our expenditures for July, I want to just remind everyone, in July, expenditures will appear to be a little lower because some of our year-end accruals that we do. So the 10-16 capital building program had 0 expenditures. The 17 through 22 program had 497,000 in expenditures. The 23 through 28 program had $5,000 in expenditures. The 2023-2028 long-term debt, program had 0. The capital maintenance 8% funding also had 0. We are in the final stages of the financial closeout of the 8% funding for capital maintenance. We are also in the final stages of the fixed cost of ownership fiscal year 22 program. And we'll be bringing an information item to recap what all was done in fiscal year 22 to the Audit and Finance Committee in November. And the fixed cost of ownership 23 program has commenced. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Any questions for Ms. Costello? Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your report as always.
Thank you.
Monthly financial report, Ms. Williams.
Thank you, Ms. Green. So what I'm presenting today is the revenue and expenditure report for fiscal year 22, where we anticipate ending the year. If you pay attention to the second column, you'll notice that revenues totaled 605.7 million. Expenditures totaled 594.8 million. That's in excess of 10.9 million that we would be adding back to the budget, to the fund balance, revenues over expenditures. A number of things attributed to the surplus at the year end, largely related to salary and benefit savings, in addition to the hiring and spend freeze that the district enacted a few months ago. Also, an anticipated increase in revenue, tax revenue by 8.5 million, in addition to some larger contractual savings. I'll pause there for any questions.
Any questions from Ms. Williams? I'd like to see those numbers where the expenditures are going down, or we saving, so that's great.
And remind me when we start projecting out the end of the year, is it after December? I can't remember when.
After the first quarter, we'll start the projection process for fiscal 23, but this is for fiscal 22, closing out last fiscal year.
Right.
Yeah, so just for clarification, so I think in November, I think it's November, we'll bring the first projections for next year in November, but that will not include the year where we expect to end the year. We won't do that until after December. So it'll be February, the first time we would actually bring to the Audit and Finance Committee a projection of where we expect to end the year.
Got it. So we were 10 million ahead of for last year, and we're still at the moment living with our budget, which has a $21 million shortfall, and we'll continue to assume that's the case until we get to that December timeframe, right?
But for the FY20,
for 23.
23 budgets.
Right.
So for FY 22, we had planned on using $21 million in fund balance.
Correct. And we
And we
did,
not use it.
we did not. So I'll walk through this a little more. I'm
Thank you.
sorry.
Got it.
So, and this is FY 22, not speaking of FY 23. So at the beginning of fiscal 22, we anticipated that we would take $21 million from fund balance to balance the entire budget. We, as activity happened throughout the year, we implemented cost savings measures. We, in fact, did not use that $21 million completely. We actually created a surplus for ourselves of $10 million. So we'll be putting that $10 million back into fund balance for FY 22. And that's where that surplus is coming from, that $10 million on the bottom line in the second column. Are there
Got it.
any further questions?
Any, does that answer your question, Karen? You're muted.
Sorry, I couldn't remember what the 23 budget deficit was. I was using the 22 budget deficit as in its stead. But I understand where we are.
Oh, okay, okay. Any other questions from any of the committee members? If not, thank you, Ms. Williams, for that report. And
Thank you.
that brings us to the board agenda items. Ms. Williams?
Thank you, Ms. Green. I have item 5, the 8% GO bond. Item 6, proximity. Item 7, the capital program phase 5 addendum. Item 8, fixed cost of ownership for the FY 23 budget reallocation. Item 9, the 23 through 28 capital program phase 5. Item 12, approval of the $250,000 list. Item 14, the fiscal year 2023 minority business utilization plan. Item 15, monthly capital projects report. Item 16, monthly finance report.
And what about item 4? It was an executive session item, but will that go forward to the board?
So the intent with item 4 is to have that discussion in executive session in the regular scheduled board meeting on the 26th of September.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, well, does anybody have any questions or comments before I adjourn the meeting? As always, thank you for being here. Thank you for your attentiveness and your responsiveness. And we will meet again on the 4th of October. And I will see you all then.
Thank you all.
Yep.